We are continuing on with our second half of the second class that complements, contrasts, if you will, sometimes, Zen Buddhist ox herding with Advaita Vedanta lion taming. Interesting subjects for those of us who like to dig deep into the Dharma. I may have a particular penchant for that, and I feel like it reveals a lot of things, sheds light. The tradition, not just the religions, but inside of any one religion. Because you can go to India and get yoga and Vedanta and Samkhya and Tantra and Sikhism and Jainism. Wow, there's so much there. And then you can look at those side by side if you like. But you can also go into Buddhism, which is, of course, started off in India, in the Hinayana way. And you can find Zen, you can find Tibetan, you can find Chinese, you can find the old Indian Buddhism, and you can look at them over time in different ways and learn a lot. It's all along one river that these different scenes are coming to you. And so in that way, we looked at that in terms of this chart with the ox herding, and we can segue out of that by reading the top quote, which I didn't read, about, so putting a capper on this 10 strata or stages of enlightenment. The ox symbolizes the intrinsic nature of consciousness, the mystery of what we are. The seeker of enlightenment must become as close an observer of consciousness as the Eskimo is of snow conditions. So that's been put in terms of 12th century Chinese Buddhism. That's what they were talking about. And actually, Jaga was Lexixin, our founder's Zen ordination name. So I'm glad that I didn't say the ox symbolizes the intrinsic nature of consciousness, because then I wouldn't have to defend that, because there is no intrinsic nature of consciousness in Zen. That's just how clear a field they want to leave it, and boundless, without any boundaries, like an ocean that you just go forever and there's no land. Consciousness is like that, and so they don't want to do it any injustice, or put any limitation on it. And that's why Zen mind, practitioner mind, beginner's mind, and all this, with the 3 pillars of Zen and such great teachings that have come to us over time, are suggesting to us, to shift without grasping, as we were talking about at the break, to always leave the open space beyond religion, and to observe snow conditions and draw certain conclusions, but be able to let them go if something of a higher truth suggests itself to you, just like they did with astronomy in the early days, in the later days, and then they did the same with mathematics, and they did the same with physics, and they had to get one view and then let that one go, and then grab the new view and expand to it, but they might have still suffered by people who were hanging on to the old view and pit against each other, like Newtonian to Einstein kind of thing. And so when a newer vision comes along, people have to graduate to it and let go of the old vision as far as it's necessary. In philosophy and in religion, and especially I say in spirituality, when it gets to its higher reaches, like the higher elevations of thinking or non-thinking as the case may be, then you're going to have to use words and to be able to let them go at the same time. So that's the intrinsic nature of consciousness, you might say to a Roshi. What are you talking about? There's no intrinsic nature to consciousness. That's giving it a limitation, that's giving it a name, that's giving it a boundary. So you have to find ways in which to explain those subtleties as far as they will go. And then you have to experience yourself, of course. And so I think they leave it in the terms of a method, as far as a method will take you. It's like climbing a mountain path, and then all of a sudden, like in Nepal when we went there, everything fell below the clouds. The clouds were already high, but we were above the clouds. We couldn't see anything below the clouds. And but there was a lot down there below the clouds. So we were getting a higher and higher view in which things were just disappearing. Then we thought we were as high as we could go above the clouds. And then all of a sudden, the clouds parted and the Himalayas were 10,000 feet above us. And we were just stunned to see this open up like that. We thought we were already as high as we could go elevation-wise. And when the Himalayas revealed themselves, they were way above us. and just came out of the sky. Mountains came out of the sky and they stand there. That's a famous line in a song. So that describes this no inherent nature of consciousness. And so when your ox became one with you and you became intimate to it, you didn't think about it anymore. There was no two to think about. So your concepts, your fears, your thoughts, your doubts, all of that was somewhere in Maya. Ignorance isn't real, I started off chanting. So it shouldn't cause you any real doubt or any real misgivings. Or you don't want to cling to old things when you found this brilliant new view. You've breathed a higher air of consciousness, like a swan that left a lower mountain lake and went to a higher one and is going to continue doing that, Lord Buddha said, as recorded in the Dhammapada. So with that kind of putting a capper on the scoreboard of Zen Buddhism, 2-1, then let's look at this way in which a Vedantist who's got some of them, the Gyanis particularly, have very analytical minds. And they're not going to accept any wood and nickels, to put it mildly. So that's a good part of it. And we also know that it's also going to be very important to hold on to levels of understanding only so long as they're necessary, but be willing to shift and go on. And in that way, like climbing the 8 limbs of yoga, if you're a yogic practitioner of an authentic kind. Or again, studying the 9 limbs of bhakti, in the Ramayana. So you would make sure all of these were like steps that you took on a ladder. And you don't abandon them, they become a part of your journey. And you can come back. In that way, the idea of there being a goal, is given up. But that didn't stop Lord Buddha from saying, we go from lower goals to higher goals. Gatam, gatam, paragatam, he says. So from this goal and that goal, we're always using that to head toward the supreme goal. So he did specify that, because he had reached it. In that time, it was called Nirvana. And people were astounded about him coming out of that, just like 2,500 years later, 2,300 years later, they were astounded to see Sri Ramakrishna coming out of Nirvikalpa samadhi, and made a huge impression on us and on the world. So, if we want to set this off, the Zen ox herding with Advaitic line taming, because there's one more chart. Next week I'll show you about the attributes and qualities that a Vedantist use to tame, like finding the ox, taming the lion, making it that oneness, or not two-ness as Zen would say, occur. Then we can look at it this way in the 9 steps to perfection. To be given the ultimate statement first, which is a good thing, reaching the pinnacle of pure conscious awareness, the individualized soul merges in the supreme state, which is the source and origin of all objects and all beings. So there are, of course, coming to mind Upanishadic quotes about that, as all the source and origin of all objects and all beings. So you have objects coming out of unmanifested prakriti, which is the insentient side of existence. I'm going to just use one word for it. And then you have the peopled side, the souls, and how they're connected with unmanifested Prakriti. Krishna would say, I have my lower nature. That would be the 5 elements, the threefold mind, prajna body, fourfold mind. He used it threefold. But then he would say, I have my higher nature then. It's the life force by which everything is supported. So that's this prana, that's this unseen force. But beyond that, both of those is my supreme nature. That's my true self, my true nature, he says. So much like that, you're looking at a flow of objects out of unmanifested Prakriti. Just like nature here can produce so many things, nature itself gets produced out of its unoriginated, which is containing much more than what we see here. And what we see here is constantly changing and expanding too. So just on the insentient side of everything, called unmanifested Prakriti, you've got this the contents. But then you have the container, so which is the self, and the life force which animates everything. At one point you could call that Shakti power, as they begin to do, the Tantrasists particularly. So this is reaching the pinnacle, say. If you want to put it more simply, we can take the quotes first. Sri Ramakrishna says, one attains to perfection by going beyond the universe and its created beings conjured up by Maya. Pretty easy to use. Maya and Prakriti is the same thing. Prakriti applying more toward the Samkhya, leading to the Vedanta in yoga. Maya pertaining more to the Advaita Vedanta, leaning towards Tantra, and how they would explain things. So whatever the case may be, the point is that you go beyond them. And as you go beyond them, find your true nature again and realize in the end that all those things were contained in you. The whole shooting match was in you. The entire worlds of name and form all came out of you. And then you can somehow put a name to it, like Satori, or Nirvikalpa, or a Sampragyata. So these stages don't necessarily happen as quickly as I'm about to relate them to you, but they might bring up some understanding as a contrast or complement to what we're seeing here. Basically, I put them all together with words that rhyme. First, you're deceived, see, by Maya, deception, and then reception, then recollection, then inspection, then rejection, then reflection, then perception, then introspection. Finally, perfection at the top. So these are all stages which can be, which have Sanskrit, nine-limbed tree here in Vedanta, but can be put together effectively with English too. So in kapata, that is when you're deceived, and I said that at the beginning of class, right? Deha jasa hamkara, everyone's born here with the absolute certainty that they're the body. The first evolutive Maya. I mean, when you think about it, it's really silly, or stupid that you would think that anyone would think that. But there they all are, absolutely enamored of that. The body is everything to them. Vivekananda said, you thought it was bad in India, you should see it over here in America. Like preparing their hair, he said. There are so many instruments that fill a bathroom of ways in which you can prepare and primp up the body and fix the hair and the eyebrows and this and that and everything. He was just like somewhere between amazement and bewilderment about why we would put so much attention on the body. So, and he's just a monk, with no hair, or he did have hair, it was never combed. He's walking around, seeing Brahman, and the world is, get thee behind me kind of thing. He's a sannyasin. So, not much more to say about that. It's this deception is on everyone. It's the first evolute of this Maya that we're talking about. That is the world bewitching Maya, as Ramakrishna called it. So the teaching here is, the awakening soul begins to suspect that the universe of names and forms is not ultimately true or real, supported by his or her own sufferings and experiences in relativity. So man is driven to the infinite by suffering, whose beauty should alone draw him. See, they say in India. The beauty of God should have drawn you, but suffering is sending you towards God instead. So that takes a while. Probably look at, replace me right now with a chart on the Buddhist Nidanas, 9 of them, and you'll see how this conditioning happens to a being in 9 steps, how they come to another lifetime still deluded, still in kapata. But this kapata, just you see the beauty of it, see how there's a sort of sense of hidden essence and fruitful illusion and flashes of insight that are happening amidst all this negativity, like the many paths that are, you're treading, all the risks that you're going through as you tread these paths, some of them which are happiness, pain-bearing, pleasure-bearing, pain-bearing. You see the beauty of it. Right here in one stage, the soul is still suspicious that this is a dream, that this is an illusion, that this is not reality. So that's a great ox you got there, you see. Can I have him? Can I buy him? No, he's not for sale. In fact, I can't separate myself from him. We come together as a package, you see. So in that way, your true nature is to be relied upon. It'll stand you in the highest stead. You should have intimacy with it. All right, so I could go on and on about that because you can see I love the connection already, and I can see the connections. And putting them side by side makes them juicier. But the second level here, buddhi vyapara. After deception, there's some sort of reception. It means as a result of doubting the reality of appearances, put very nicely yogically, Vedantically, because, it's not that much emphasized over here. False superimposition and so forth. It's pretty much just given simple words. The human heart and mind opens to the search for deeper meaning and higher existence beyond the realm of matter, because it starts to have experiences where, deception happened, and then, it feels like that's not the truth I'm being given by appearances. So then I want to be open, buddhi vyapara. My intellect has to expand now to let go of the old vision and take on this new vision. If I can do that 100% swiftly, then that's going to be best for me, but most people can't manage that. They're going to have to let go of it in tendrils. Even the 8 limb yogas like that. You still have karmas existing by the time you get to the 6th limb. Those should have gone away a long time ago, but Patanjali doesn't think so. And neither does Vashishta in his yoga. All right, then abhikya. Abhikya means recollection. And we were already talking about divine memory and its import. Gaining an initial glimpse of reality, you see where you can glimpse the ox, and attaining, and I can tell you right now that I did this entirely independent of this. You see, what's the date? 37. Yeah, this came before this. So, what?
It says at the bottom 17.
Oh yeah, 17. 2017, 2018. So this was all in my mind because this is sort of my own gathering of things. It's in the tradition, but I put it in this order and gave it this kind of English wording. But this was to come later when I looked more at Zen, and because Lex Hickson's books came out, Living Buddha Zen, and one other. And Coming Home, of course, was there much earlier. So that was my cursory reading of Zen. But of course then I had a Roshi of my own too, an Aitken Roshi here in Hawaii, whom I meditated with at the Diamond Zendo. And so I had a few years of exposure to Zen, to Zazen and so forth, which were very early on in my 20s, so that was great. I had that. But you can see then why I'm making these quick maneuvers here towards reminding you. Gaining an initial glimpse of the reality beyond names and forms, the soul begins to remember its original state of being and embarks upon an inward journey to recover it. So you're moving out into the forest now. See, and you're, don't worry, you're going to be encountering some maze of pathways. But you can see by the English words that you were deceived, you suspected it, you were open to the other, we would say to the Dharma and to the wisdom teachings and so forth, but you were open to any solution that anyone had to give you. Maybe you didn't get it from your parents when you started to question about people suffering. Like Buddha didn't get it in the palace, with his parents. And so you had to go, and you didn't get it maybe at school in Western education because everyone is hot in the trail of a slug rather than an ox. It's like, where's the slime, They're following Maya to nothing. At least you were you were remembering you had a true nature and it wasn't matter. And so you started on an inward journey, an inner quest, which some of us did in the 60s and 70s, that I can remember. So this inner journey to recover the ox, we're making these, that's why I think it's so interesting, side by side. And not stage by stage, it isn't exactly the same thing, but you can mix and match as you like. Nirupana's inspection. So this is going to be very huge in Vedanta. You have to discriminate between the real and the unreal and that kind of thing. So you're beginning to get into these methods, or methods if you could call them such, of separating the wheat from the chaff, as we even mentioned over here. Or we mentioned in the chart we took on the last time. So scrutinizing the world of matter, the principle of energy, and the cosmic cycles of universal phenomena, the striving soul comes to know its mutable nature. So I am not that. See, I'm not matter, I'm not energy, I'm not thought, but everyone's into those three things via the body. See, this body is matter, I don't care, I'm matter. This body has energy in it, I don't care about any other energy. This universe has energy in it, electrical, kinetic, and so forth. I don't care, that's all physical, that's me. Or it isn't me, but it doesn't matter. And then you get to this third level of things. Add in those cosmic cycles of time and history and so forth, and how that's interpreted by people who are supposed to be experts in it. I think when you get to the fourth one, though, it's a clincher. Universal phenomena, like suffering. When you see the ocean of suffering up close, usually people turn from selfish to altruistic about there, if they have any sensitivity in them. They don't want other people to suffer. They don't like to see that suffering. A lot of people will go toward the political and towards the scientific to combat that. But very few people, the seers only, the sages and seers and saints, will turn towards religion as being the go-to move, the solution for that. There's got to be a way in which heart has to be worked into this. Heart means, in our tradition, intelligence. The word is Meda, Kendra, the intelligence of the heart. Kendra is the heart, intelligence is wisdom. So those two are like ox and the rider, as far as religion, Vedantic religion is concerned. So when, we're not saying that we're going all emotional on you see. And neither Zen nor Advaita likes that. It's, don't get emotional about phenomena. That's what's sucking all these people with inferior methods towards being part of the problem rather than a solution. Number one, and most importantly, they don't realize the whole thing's just a play and that suffering isn't real. It seems so real in others and in oneself. That's because they're identified to the body. If they were like Sri Ramakrishna or Swami Vivekananda or Ramana Maharshi or Jesus or Buddha, they'd be given the body up right at the outset. They would have been born knowing they're not the body. So that's why they can take so much insult, in the form of injustice. Turn the other cheek. Work for the best of humanity without getting involved in conventional religion or conventional anything, because they have this realization of the nature of things. If they did any ox herding, it was a long time ago for themselves. Now they're doing it for others. So inspection, I was about to say, is very important. This is where you really begin to get that Vedanta flavor. You see, like up here it was like the flavor of humans, right? Becomes transformed, you see, into a kind of flavor of human intelligence or human consciousness. All of a sudden you're not looking at them as humans anymore, you're thinking of them as intelligent beings. And that will help pull it out of them. Like Vivekananda said, you don't serve the ego, you serve the Atman in them when you serve. If you serve the ego, it caters to pride and arrogance and inflation and misconception and so forth. But you serve the Atman in them, they begin to feel like maybe there is divinity in me. Then you've won a few souls to your side. And you can, like 12 apostles of Christ and 16 direct disciples of Ramakrishna and so forth, the noble eight of Buddhism, they call it, then you can start having some people on your side to help you with the ox herding and the Atmic lion taming. So the teaching here about inspection is that scrutinizing the world of matter, principle of energy, cosmic cycles, universal phenomena, the striving soul comes to know its mutable nature. Asato, you see, basically, na asato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubayor api darshantos to anayos tattva darshibihi, isn't it, in the Gita? So Krishna says, the unreal never is. The real never ceases to be. The truth about both has been known by the seers. So they didn't come to know the Atman by ignoring the unreal. That's dangerous. You just study it from a distance, that's all. We, those who are deluded, back there at Kapata or even before then, got into it and studied it. Even our intellectuals and our savants got into it and studied it. Let's study the mind as a brain. Let's study the human as a body. You see, medicine, biology, those things. So they were hook, line, sinker, caught into it from the get-go. But the illumined soul was not caught like that. She was Nityasiddha. He knew about the perfection of their true nature beyond not only body, energy, mind, intellect, and ego, but beyond matter, energy, cosmic cycles, cosmos, and universal phenomena. Beyond all of those was the Atman. They knew this. They know this. So the point being, they came to know their mutable nature through this process. And if they had to do it again in another lifetime to show you, they would do that. They would take on the suffering of others in order to show you suffering's not real. But most people look at them taking on the suffering of others and think, look at that suffering he went through. But when Jesus Christ was on the cross, he said, "Oh Lord, why have you forsaken me?" Our teacher, our founder, Lex Sixten, used to say he wasn't giving up his faith in God at that time because of pain in the body. That was a hymn in the hymnals of the time called, "Oh Lord, why have you forsaken me?" He was singing to them in front of them, watching this transfiguration, as it's called, telling them suffering's not real, this body's not real, life is not real. I've told you, eternal life is the only reality. Now will you believe me? But so many didn't. So many didn't even care. The Romans and Pharisees. So this needs inspection. This level is very important, and it's just like this level of just before riding the Om, riding the ox. You have to catch the ox first. You have to see its tracks before that, and so all of this is leading you towards uniting with yourself again. It's yourself you thought you lost, so you're going to have to think that you found it, even though it was never lost in the first place. And in 12th century China, they would have told you that if you came to them for Buddhism. The first thing they would tell you, just like Sri Ramakrishna would tell you when you came to him, you're birthless and deathless. In our tradition, there's what's called the Atman. Know thyself as that. Isn't that what Jesus said too? Know thyself. He didn't mean, know the non-self and think you're that. He meant know the non-self and know you're not that, so that you can know what you are. Well, that leads to this another important step called Jaga, rejections. When you inspect something, you're going to have to do the separating the wheat and the chaff more. So in case of Jaga, it means in an intense state of resolute assurance, the soul resists all desire-based impulses which attempt to possess the transitory universe and instead embraces emptiness. And here's where, if you're thinking in terms of Tantra and Yoga, it sounds like the Astabala Siddhas are mixed in there, the occult powers. Because if you're back here studying universal phenomena and thinking it to be real, and the only avenue open to you then is to try and gain power over it, then you go to the eight Siddhas, the Astabala Siddhas, and you try and do it through that inferior means. And then you won't gain the rain cloud of virtues that comes to the person who renounces the 8 occult powers and instead goes toward the truth of the matter. Because the 8 occult powers, by adopting them, you're saying to yourself and to others the universe is real. By renouncing those powers that come to you and going toward the 6 powers of the Godhead, you're affirming for yourself that I'm that. See, I'm not this, I'm not that. So this is how inspection will turn into rejection. And this is where Jaga or renunciation and detachment is, supreme in Vedanta. They'll stop you there, like Zen will stop you before you get a concept of the emptiness of things. Make sure that you're ready for shunyata or for satori. Vedanta will stop you there and say, are you sure that you understand this before you go into deeper stages? So Vivekananda used to say that, when a man renounces the 8 occult powers, he gets the rain cloud of virtues, Dharma, Megha, Samadhi. That's what the father of yoga has told us hundreds of years ago. When he rejects that, he gets this. So rejection is a very important thing after inspection. You can see how this is all really beautifully leading towards the goal beyond all goals. And put in a different language, but no denying the connections. And no denying that it's from India. Because like I say, where else in religion are you getting this kind of teaching? Even in the monasticism of other religions, why are you giving things up? Quite often falls into the trap of aversion. But if you're giving things up in yoga, attraction, aversion is one of the first two things that have to go. You're not giving up your attraction to the world to be averse to it. That's a dead end. And if your monasteries and your teachers in monasteries are teaching you that, then you're not, you should go to India, find out what their sannyasins have been living, how they've gotten freedom, how they've gotten samadhi, and how so many thousands of them have produced the rishis of India who have given the Upanishads that has this non-dual truth permeating it, like sweetness permeates sugarcane juice. This is awakening at a very high level, and it can happen, but you follow it in the Orient. You follow it in the Orient. That's why we all turn to there when we're avid seekers. That sounds like more like the truth to me. I can take it in the form of Buddhism, or I can take it in the form of Vedanta, or yoga, or Kundalini yoga. Yeah. Where else am I going to find it? Sufism, maybe. You see, if you don't get stuck in inferior practices of Sufism. But this kind of willful, resolve of the soul on getting rid of that. And I said not taking any wooden nickels. See, no deceptions, because deception was left behind already, and it's absolute insistence upon the truth is the winning element in Vedanta. And it's just like, what are you talking about? There's no enlightenment, there's no Zen, there's no consciousness, there's no intrinsic nature. Over here it's, what are you talking about? There's no Maya, there's no ignorance, and there's no attaining of anything. You're already that. And jump to the chase right now and get that. Because it'll be better for you if you want to go into these higher stages, like Artha Bhavana. After deception, reception, recollection, inspection, and rejection happen, you have to reflect some more. And so this would be called Manana after Shravana, or Yukti after Shruti. Met a Indian woman the other day. His name is Shruti. And so basically that's means I heard the truth, basically. I want to ask her if she did yet, but I might not have that much temerity. But if your name's Shruti, then somebody should tell you what that means, right? That means to hear the truth. The scriptures in India that are the highest are called Shruti. So you see the Shruti, and you go hear it, and you realize the Shruti. Maybe you'll even get named Shruti if you do that. But it is to be heard, means. Is to be heard. There's an instrument in India that just gives one tone out. You squeeze it. It's called Shruti box. You see? So we used to come in from symphony and Western symphony, go into the musicians' union. We'd go into this room and say, where's the pitch? Where's the music? Where's the W4s? So basically, we wanted to get paid. So we'd go in and, they'd give us a pitch, from the keyboard. We'd tune our instruments. We'd sign the W4s, do our job, and go on. Check would come in the mail 2 weeks later, see. That's how musicians live, right? But if you're an Indian musician, you walk in the room and you sit down with your instruments and where's the Shruti box, Give us the tone so I can tune to it, so I can play to it. So that's to be heard. See? Without that tone, nothing else is going to come together. See? So this is, you want to hear Om. or you want to hear the teacher's words, the Dharma. That's the Shruti. Or you want to read the scriptures that are called Shruti, because that must be heard in this lifetime. The earlier the better. You can see if you understand this early, or if you're on the trail of the ox early, the quicker you'll get that insight that you're looking for, and the quicker that will turn into realization. So it says here, as far as Artha Bhavana goes, reflection, contemplating emptiness for a time, the soul begins to uncover the subtle basis underlying that state, discovering the secret of interconnectedness and all-pervasiveness. So it's connected and it's all-pervasive, both. This is what you will get from reflecting on these earlier stages. This is non-duality in the making. Realization of non-duality is now in the making. And you can see that it's going to take the teachings without the backdrop of things, emptiness, right? So what got empty? Body got emptied. Phenomena got emptied out of my mind, you see. My preoccupation with energy in the sky, like lightning and thunderbolts, and electricity as an electrician, all that got emptied, see. And the cosmos itself got emptied out of my mind. Then when I was ready for that, I could reflect on the truth, because the truth is none of those things. And I am that. I am that, none of those things. This is a more mature version of emptiness than most people get, as an explanation with words. And so this is a very high level of detachment, vairagyam. There's a viveka vairagya fits in somewhere in there, and you can see where it can definitely be happening here too. That there was probably a lot that these simple words that they used did not say. Maybe they didn't want to clutter the thinking mind of that day, the simple mind of that day even. Or maybe it was too complex thinking in 12th century Buddhism, because there's, you're talking about on the way is coming the Madhyamaka and all of that. That was anything but simple. So basically, this is getting a little bit too complex. Let's give them this ox herding thing quick, you see, and help them understand. They can fill in the spaces later, connect the dots later. But this is the point of it. Connecting the dots is very important. Interconnectedness of all things. That's a huge, that comes hand in hand, one step after the Four Noble Truths. Interdependent arising of phenomena and falling of phenomena and so forth. And the nidanas that lead you from lifetime to lifetime. These are the three great precepts in Buddhism. Ashtanga Marga and the nidanas and Praticca Samutpata. These three things, you got to know these if you're a Buddhist. And then you'll be at this very high level of understanding of emptiness. And you won't be taking any false, any wooden nickels again. You won't be fooled. Because it must be that somehow I got fooled when I came to Earth in this lifetime. But I still had that, where's my ox? In my mind, you see. Can you remember your childhood? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? What's missing here? Was that occurring to you? Or how quickly did they put you on the path of money? You see. And make you lose all memory through focusing on commerce and so forth. They just make you all memory of where you just came from. Wipe that out, quick. I want my son and daughter to be successes, make lots of money, not suffer the way I did. But wait a minute, Mom, suffering was because of money. Can't think about that right now, son. So here we finally get some light along the path. It's been all work up to this, mental work mostly in Advaita Vedanta. But perceptions now coming. And you can see where that definitely helps here when you forget that there is anything separate from you. I mean, because remember, don't forget this, discover the secret of interconnectedness and all pervasiveness. That goes deep. If you understand that, that goes deep. I mean, that is emptiness right there. As it just took everything away because everything's interconnected and all pervasiveness. I am in it all. The real me is there in it all. In Vedanta, it's false superposition, tear away the appearances, and there it is standing. It's there in front of you. And here is that in a natural process of things, you just remember your true nature. You're one with the ox. And so all of this is involved very deeply with perception, deeper perception. And like the Eskimo studying snow conditions, all of a sudden, he sees one year that when the snow turned that condition, there was a blizzard coming. So, and he wasn't prepared for it. He suffered. So this year, he knows that when the snow turns that condition, a blizzard's on the way. I better give up the old way I thought, take to this new way I thought, protect myself. Sure enough, the blizzard comes. He's safe in his igloo with some bear fat and a walrus tusk. So basically, he's studied snow conditions and learned from that process of cycles, cosmic phenomena and so forth. He's learned from that, and now he's ready to empty himself out and fill himself with this new wisdom. It's called a perception, or an insight here. So the teaching on it is perceiving the truth of existence that is the foundation of mind, life, and human beings. The soul remains enthralled with it and abides in a state of peace and subtle bliss. I just chanted that. You see, Vilapya Shantim Paramam Bhajasva is what last words I said in Sanskrit at the beginning. He gets eternal peace and ecstatic bliss. So here's where it happens, at upalabdhi, if I didn't say that already. Beautiful Sanskrit word. Perception. You grace yourself with perception. Like, I got on the back of the ox, then I forgot there was an ox. See? And then I just go about. The two are one now. So that kind of perception, based on interconnectedness and all-pervasiveness, is now the non-dual thread that's guiding me through everything. Like Sri Ramakrishna said about Vivekananda, he's like a hot knife cutting through butter everywhere he goes. Nothing can impede him. He's like a sun where darkness is. So here's where the subtle things start happening after the deep philosophical understandings. See, interconnectedness, all-pervasiveness, immutability. My mind's kind of beginning to get a little filled here, and I can't quite understand these things, and you say, quit that. Here's peace and bliss. And all of a sudden you feel it, paramam jasva, supreme bliss. Vilapya shantim, eternal peace, not just a peace of, a little quietude and then back to restlessness again. But this is this eternal peace that comes upon me. And I don't have to think about the ox anymore. That is, I don't have to think about how everything's interconnected or that anything is all-pervasive, unless I have students. I'll have to think about it then. You arm yourself with every weapon if you're a teacher. The student doesn't do that. The student just gets one weapon and gets free. The Dharma teachers, those great souls who come, they have to arm themselves with everything to fend off Maya, people's natures. Naysayers. Vivekananda used to say, he came across a lot of naysayers when he came here to the West. And a lot of them among the priest class of Christianity. But though they don't like what I'm saying, I've been here a while now, and I see that they're running back to their scriptures and changing things in terms of what I said. Because they don't want to be caught off guard, you see. Someone came who finally spoke the truth into the Maya of America and England, which is in a worse condition. Somebody came and actually shed a light there. They're intelligent people who are getting tired of our religious bullshit, our fundamentalism, our irreligion, masquerading as religion. They're going to see through that. We better go change our scriptures, you see. Because we can't give them the old lies anymore. We can't make them drink dirty ditch water anymore, you see. Because he's got a, right from the mountain source, he's got this river of truth flowing at them. We better do something, see. This is how they think. Well, two more steps, but this is the penultimate one. Brahma Chintana. And if you know Sanskrit at all, you know these are very powerful words, Brahman and Chintana. It's after perception, then you'd get introspection of the true kind. You can concentrate now and you can meditate. That's what they mean by this kind of introspection. Since you've been able to shut everything out, then why use that only for philosophical understanding? Or why use that just for my own use? That is, that I am one with my ox. That's ordinary now. What I want to use it for now is sit and put my mind on Brahman, because I can. See, I've been not able to do that for lifetimes. I've been robbed. I've been robbed by the 6 passions. I've been robbed by the 8 fetters. I've been robbed by the 9 antarayas. I've been robbed by irreligion. I've been robbed by upbringing. For lifetimes, possibly. See. And they took my ox too. It wasn't bad enough, you see. Leave my dog alone at least. You see. At least let me have that. But they'll kill that too on the way. So Brahmachintana is introspection. The teaching here is saturated with deep understanding and intense devotion. The soul aspires to immerse itself into the ocean of existence, knowledge, and bliss, absolute. One of the most beautiful words for divine reality in Sanskrit, Sat, Chit, Ananda. One school says, God is existence. Yeah, we can accept that. But we think God's also intelligence. Well, yes, that's true. When another school comes forward, dancing and smiling. We like bliss, see. Oh, well, let's put the 3 together. It's all interconnected anyway, right? So let's call God Satchidananda. And everyone was happy. They had a name for God that nobody could really complain about. Even those who didn't like the name God, they have to go, well, okay, grumpy, you see. So, saturated with deep understanding and intense devotion, the soul aspires to dip the towel of the mind into the ocean of Brahman for the last time. Just totally saturate it. And it can do it now. Have you ever tried to do that? Because even Sri Ramakrishna in modern times told us to do that. Just dip the towel of your mind every day into the Dharma, into the ocean of Brahman. Okay, I'm trying. As you sit for an hour, did you get anywhere? I didn't even get the seam wet yet, see, of my towel. What do you mean put it in there? First I have to find it. Now it's in you, like the ox is in you. You and I are one. We are not two, you see. And Samyak Darshana, perfection. That's already back here when you thought you were seeking the ox was already you. So you just did this play, you just enacted this trip, this inner journey. You went through the facade of seeking just to come back to where you were in the first place. Like Bushundi, the crow. made Ram very angry, and this crow could shift dimensions. So it thought, I'll get away with Ram, so he's mad at me, he's going to kill me if he finds me. So he shifted dimensions, see, and he went somewhere else. But Ram also knows all the dimensions. So he left Earth, and he saw it in his mind. He went with his subtle body looking. Finally found Bushandi and grabbed him. And Bushandi said, oh, it's all over now, you see. And Ram put him in his mouth, and Bushandi went, this is death. And then Bushandi woke up in his own nest, back on Earth. So this is described in ancient Indian lore and scripture as this famous crow with occult powers. You see, he could do all these things, but he went on this huge journey, running away from himself. Ram was himself, was his ox. And all this time, he just came back to realize that Ram and him and death and everything were one and the same, and he's just always in his own nest. You could turn that into 10 stages of crow nesting, see, or something. Make whole scripture out of that. So that's called Samyak Darshana, and there's no teaching to give on it because all the teachings have been given leading up to it. And so it also sounds a lot about like the 8 Noble Truths, Samyak this, Samyak that, Sadhanachatushtaya, Samyak Darshana, and so forth. This is like, perfect everything in the Eightfold Path. It's just perfect everything. Perfect making of money, perfect meditation. It's all been given out there in the Ashtanga Marga. So they're all admittedly Indian darshanas, all of them. And that's why we pay deference and reverence to the Divine Mother of the Universe through the form of Sanatana Dharma that's come from Mother India. And we always pray to her for remembrance of these great teachings, so that we can all, if we do take bodies, we'll never fall into the Mayic evolutes that tell us that we are the sheaths. Never fall into the problem that of green coconut oneness, immature Zen sickness that we've gone through in the second half. And always remember that there are methods to use in these darshanas, that we can't just say, I'm now a member, Even if I've taken ordination, or if I've taken mantra diksha, or if I've taken hand with the Sufis, or if I've taken refuge in the Buddha, that's not enough for higher perception to lead back to perfection again. You're going to have to take a method and use it and prove it to yourself. Then next lifetime you'll come back and you'll say, no more methods for me. I am that. And you'll be there like Bushandi in his nest. You'll be there in that oneness like they are, the great souls. Like we saw Swami Vivekananda for 39 years here in recent times, perfectly in view of his divine nature. No Atmic lion taming needed for him, but he was using it on others. And that's what we'll look at next week when we look at to even the score in this doubleheader, when we look at the kitty looking in the mirror and seeing a lion. Or is this you, as we'll say later, is this you? Are you just a lamb? Or are you that lion of Vedanta that he said, if we can just have a few dozen of those lion-type souls in the world, we'll be able to bring about great transformation, the highest good for all people. So here, a few minutes early, I think we've come to a good breaking place. Let's end with the Sanskrit chant. Om Tachnayora Vrinnimahe Gatum Yagyaya Gatum Yenu Patyahe Daivi Swastarastu Naha Swastir Manushe Baha Urdvam Jagatu Besajam Sangno Astu Dvibade Sangjatushpate Om Shanti 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 Hi. May we make a great offering of the small self into the great self. May we always delight in this offering and always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.